Morning and welcome to Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. I'm Dan Stratton. It's great to be with you today. We're going to talk about a topic today in these few minutes that we're together. But before we do, I just want to thank you, as always, for participating every week. Leaders are being trained up around the country. We're working in the nation of Cuba. We're working in the prisons. We're working in the financial realm, and leaders are being trained. And the more we work on our own personal development, the more we qualify in the world really to participate at a more impactful level. So these teachings that I do are simple, they're straightforward, and sometimes we can discount them because they seem so simple. But really what you're always wanting to do is you want to declutter your mind. You want to declutter your processes for making decisions, for forming strategy, for putting together a plan. So today we're talking about making setbacks your friend. I find when I'm training leaders, and the more I get to work on cooler and cooler, more impactful projects, I find that the smarter you are, the more trouble you have when you hit difficulty. Because you depend on your ability to learn, you depend on your ability to pick up on things quickly. And when things don't come quickly to you, that's when you go into a funk. And I have a pet peeve, and maybe it's because I'm not as smart as a lot of people. So I've really learned how setbacks are part of my life, how I'm always, almost daily, maybe sometimes more than once a day, running into issues where I have to learn, where I have to recognize that I'm, weak in an area, and that I have to focus on it so that I can bring my whole game where I'm strong and where there might be really cool opportunities and where I have resources. I have to focus on where I'm weak. I have to focus on the area that I may need to bring up to speed so it doesn't collapse in a moment of measurement, or in a moment when I have to perform, in a moment where I could find myself in a level of incompetency. So always remembering to think about, your setbacks, not in a way of, that they're going to stop you or even as a negative. Really all it is an indication that you might be weak in an area, or that you didn't think something through in a strategic fashion, you didn't anticipate it, and you didn't really have a good understanding of what I call the SWOT, and that's SWOT, and what that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is a very common tool. I didn't make it up. And it's used a lot in strategic planning and in strategic management. And it's used a lot with companies as they're looking to take their idea, their product, their service to market. And so when you're working on this as an individual, you want to bring in best practices all the time. You want to think about your life like you're going to market. You want to think about your life as important, whether you're raising children, whether you're buying a house, buying a car, whether you're selling a house, selling a car, no matter what it is, you want to go through this kind of a process where you go strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. What could go wrong would be a threat. Do you have something out there, a dynamic, something that's going out maybe in the marketplace, and then that could be a threat? What's the opportunity? You look at the opportunity. Yes, there's a lot of adverse circumstances out there. Weaknesses. Okay, what do you know? What don't you know? Always remember that when you're looking at your weaknesses, you may have personal weaknesses, but if you're on a good team, you may have teamed up with some people that cover your weaknesses. I always say the answer to every question is a person. So I don't have to know everything. I don't have to be a dentist if I know one. I don't have to be a strategic planner if I know one, and I'm willing to learn the vocabulary so I can understand and make decisions based on the advice that I get. And then going back to my strengths, sometimes I have to remember that my strengths are where I like to go. Like when I used to train a lot, when I go to the gym, I had very, very strong legs and back. I wasn't really big in my shoulders, my arms, or my chest. So if I wasn't careful, I would spend a lot of time on my legs and my back, and I just make them stronger. And I didn't spend enough time, especially on my chest and shoulders, because I was always trying, because I was kind of a skilled player where I was always catching and throwing. So I always wanted to keep my shoulders and my arms as flexible as I possibly could, but it was still a weakness that I had to train to, even though, I always wanted to go to my strengths, which was training my legs, making my legs and my back stronger. I was good at it. When you're in the gym, a lot of times there's competition. You like to show off a little bit. And so you go to your strengths. And that's true. I find that's true even in people who aren't that athletic. They go to their intellectual strengths. They go to the areas of their life where they may have a lot of informational, data. They have a lot that they can go to. They know a lot. So they go to their strengths. But I also find the smarter you are informationally, intellectually, that you are prone to, going through times when you don't really like to address your weaknesses. And so you spend a lot of time celebrating your strengths and you don't address your weaknesses. And so that's something that is absolutely essential to success on a regular basis, is being able to look at the whole landscape, looking at the whole situation, and then dividing it up. Where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? Where are the opportunities? And where are the threats? Okay. And strengths, very important that you look at your strengths and assess what you're going to bring to the table. And then weaknesses is where, when you look at your weaknesses, then you've got to go find people. Generally, people, I always say, we're called to do something great, but none of us can do it alone. We need a team. And that's very, very important to understand. And so as you think about that, you go in there and you go, okay, I'm weak in these areas. And that's just honest. That's just being honest, that you need to go and get those resources. Then you look out at the opportunities, and that's where the team comes in as well, because no one can see the landscape perfectly. Nobody can see all the possible opportunities of what's going on with you. That's why a lot of people come to me for advice, because they'll come to me and they'll think these are the only things that are on the table for them. These are the only opportunities in their lives, and they're facing some setbacks. Maybe they're in a place where they got to find a new job, right? They got to find a new job. And they're thinking, these are my only opportunities, and they'll come to me. And I'll say, well, those might not be your only opportunities. Why don't we get some resumes out over here? Why don't we make some phone calls over there? Let me make a couple phone calls for you. Don't let this situation where you just find yourself without a job, whether you left that job for one reason or another, or whether you were fired, whatever it was. Let's not make this thing an overwhelming setback. Let's not fall into a funk. We have to learn in life that setbacks are coming. Setbacks are coming. And when you realize and anticipate setbacks, then when they come, you have a plan. And your plan starts with knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, seeing the whole world and opportunities. You should always, in the job market, because jobs are not promised all the time. Jobs are, companies change, leadership changes, and the person who loved you and thought you were the best thing since sliced bread, you thought you were great, may get promoted and they're no longer your boss, and then somebody else comes in. So you should always have your head on a little bit of a swivel, making sure that you know what the landscape is in your field or in the area that you want to go into. And that's magnified even more when you think about entrepreneurial situations, because you have to understand that there are, threats. There are threats out there. There's a great little book that I've always had people read over the years called Who Moved My Cheese, right? Who Moved My Cheese? And that's a book about Always preparing for a movable landscape, for dynamics in your life to change, to where your strength, your great strength, when you were in your 20s or your 30s, or in my case, in my 50s even, becomes a weakness, or my weakness might even become my strength, where an opportunity that I have in my life, what I thought was an opportunity, turns around, it's not really an opportunity anymore. And sometimes at the end of that, where the threats might be coming from, that threat that I thought was a threat, maybe a competitor, actually becomes a friend, where they might want to collaborate with me, they might want to work with me. So the landscape is always changing, your perspective is always changing, and setbacks are always an opportunity to add team members, to add perspective, and certainly to add humility to the way that you approach things, because it's very, very beneficial to constantly be assessing what's going on in your life. The one thing, people say this, and it's kind of a catchy phrase, the one constant that you can always count on is change. Change is always happening. And that's true even in you. You're not a constant. You are constantly changing too. And even, if you don't work your strengths start to wane. If you don't improve yourself on your strengths that you once counted on may not be a strength. But then when you discover it, and I'm not as strong as I used to be, you may see that as a setback, but it's not. It's just, wow, I caught that early enough. Let me work on it. So setbacks now don't become permanent. What they become is they just become indicators that you need to adjust, change, find another teammate, and work on all these things. You may need to learn another skill. You may need to get better at certain things. And so these things, as you move through your life, and sometimes people say to me, Dan, you're always working on me as if, I'm leading teams, of a lot of people, I'm leading teams. I said, well, it's not a question of you leading teams of a lot of people. You have a life, and that life is important to you. And I want you to develop skills where you can make decisions on a regular basis that take you towards victory, take you towards success, take you towards satisfaction, and really take you towards joy in life. And so that's really what I'm working on with you. So as you look at setbacks, always remember that you are a person who can learn. And when you start really thinking about each day as another day to learn something new, to get better what you're already good at, to get better in your weak areas, to see opportunities that are out there, and then protect your family and your dreams, your visions, your aspirations, your businesses from threats, then you really, really start having fun, because you realize you can adjust, you can pivot, you can move, and that setbacks become great indicators. As an old commodities trader, people used to talk about fear and greed. And, as a Christian, people say, if the fear is there, that's not God. And I used to tell people all the time, I make fear my friend, because fear is an indicator. Because if fear comes, that means that there's a threat there. There's a threat there, and I may not know what that threat is, but there is a threat there. So when fear comes, there's a threat, fear of losing money, fear of getting beat to a trade by another trader. And that indicator, that feeling I would get, would be part of my gut decision-making process. So I learned to make fear my friend. I didn't resist it. I rather learned from it. I let it be an indicator. And that's the same thing as the threat factor in the SWOT, SWOT, right? That threat factor is not necessarily bad. I don't want to eliminate that indicator. I don't want to eliminate that thermometer that tells me there's a threat there. Pay attention to that. I don't want to put my head in the sand and not realize it. They may stop me. They may beat me to the market. They may all these different things. They may get the job I want. But rather than putting my head in the sand, not paying attention to it, I give it equal merit. So I give setbacks a high level of study, a high level of importance. It's important. They got to be your friend. They're not your enemy. They tell you where you're weak. You don't want to go through life, and this is the last thing I'm going to say in this, where you personally limit yourself because you're afraid to fail or because you're afraid to meet a setback. You're going to put a huge cap on your life. You're going to put a ceiling in your life if you don't press up against and get setback. You're going to learn on a regular basis that that setback is absolutely essential to climbing the stairs to greater levels of impact, greater levels of influence, greater levels of success. So think about that for a moment as you're dreaming again, as you're thinking and creating a strategy, and then look around at the people in your life. Look around at your children, look around at your parents, your friends, and look around at, even in my case, I have a grandchild, a grandson. And so I think about every move I make now, everything I learn now, every person that I walk with, befriend, hang out with, becomes a resource to my grandson, becomes a revelation that I can teach to him. So everything now, whether it's working with my crews in Cuba or in the prisons or in business areas, no matter where it is, my personal development benefits them. Your personal development benefits me. So let's remember to make setbacks our friends. Remember, we can learn today. We are able to overcome obstacles. We are able to overcome areas, blind spots, where we might be ignorant or naive. We can overcome those things. And a lot of times we can overcome those through friendships, through team members that we bring on board, and through other people that we help along the way. So thanks for tuning in to Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. You can go online and you can study out for yourself the SWOT, S-W-O-T. It's a strategic management tool. It's a strategic planning tool that you can use in your own life and really begin to move forward in it. Please interact with us. We've got a lot of cool projects going on, and we'd like to get to know you. I've had a lot of people call me from different areas today, different areas in prison ministries, different areas in businesses, people from the Middle East, people from Europe calling in and wanting to be part of our team. And we're seeing how that'll look going forward. But I know that we need quality people who are developing themselves to really achieve what God wants us to achieve in this hour and in this day. So work on these things, make setbacks your friend, keep learning, and let's keep moving in the right direction. God bless you. Have an awesome day. And I'll be on again next week, Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton.